now stand and face the stage while we honor America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy will now call the roll.
Councilmember Helfrich?
Here.
Councilmember Holmstrom?
Here.
Councilmember Lorraine?
Here.
Councilmember Lewis? Excuse me, Councilmember Storm?
Here.
Councilmember Hamlet?
Here.
Mayor Masters?
Yes, thank you, Kathy. I just wanted to take a minute to say we appreciate those of you who have chosen to be here at our meeting tonight. We have several guests, and I'm glad that you're here, as well as our citizens. We do have a sign-up sheet for anyone who'd like to address the council, either during one of our action items or on item 6 for issues that are not on our agenda tonight. So if you'd like to do that, there's a clipboard here, and you can sign up for that. Okay, and we'll turn now to the next item on our agenda, which is additions or amendments to the agenda. And Paul, as the custodian of our agenda, I'll turn it over to you to suggest any changes you think should be made.
As the custodian, Mayor, I have no suggested changes.
Okay. Thank you. Any council members that have seen the agenda would like to suggest a change, now would be the time to do so. Okay, so we'll work with this agenda. And that takes us to the next item, which is the adoption of the consent agenda. We have approval of the minutes of the May 29th meeting, approval of the minutes of the June 4th special council meeting, ratification of the bills in the amount of $134,249.20, and committee appointments. I do have one appointment for the council's consideration, and that is Joe Shelley to the Tourism Committee. I've spoken with Joe a number of times, most recently just after our joint meeting with the port, where we heard the presentation from the Celilo Planning Studio on the trail networks in Cascade Locks, and he's definitely a person who is passionate about trails. He's a trail angel for the Pacific Crest Trail. He's been involved in several trail groups over the years, as well as Chamber of Commerce in other cities. So I think he'd be a good addition to the Tourism Committee. So that's our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Brad. Was there any discussion, question, or comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the adoption of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay, next item up for the docket is the public hearing. Okay, tonight we'll have a public hearing for the community to discuss proposed uses of our state revenue sharing. At this point, I will open the public hearing, and we'll open the floor for comments, people interested in sharing ideas for ways the city can use state revenue. So anyone who would like to speak in this public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to our action agenda. So I'll bring to the floor first the approval of the Library District Intergovernmental Agreement. We did have a staff report, and I understand, Paul, you prepared it, and we also have Buzzy here to speak to that.
That's correct. Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, you have before you an update for another year of the IGA between the Library District and the City of Cascade Locks. You have a copy of the proposed draft in your packet, along with a description of the memo of understanding as well as a copy of the concept paper for the community school that's being worked on. Buzzy is here. Buzzy, you want to come on up? He's here and is available to answer any questions. Our recommendation is that you approve the proposed library district city IGA.
Buzzy, did you have anything to add before we go into comment?
No, aside from what I said last meeting.
Buzzy, last meeting you talked about the possibility of shared space with the schools. Where is that in relation?
I'm talking to
Project.
Kim Vogel
Okay.
and Charlie Beck. We are very likely, we pretty much are going to move into that space. So right now what we're talking about is what's the rental cost going to be. We're pretty sure that the space we're going to be in is the, let's see, what would be southeast classrooms. There are 2 classrooms. It's in the newer part of the building. It has independent access, and we're pretty excited about it.
And then you were talking about the fiber optics and the access to the computer and stuff. And so
Yeah,
this is going to be a better fit for you guys if you're able to do that.
It's more space. It is, the fiber optic would allow us to offer a faster connection, and it's also, because of the way the classrooms in the building are designed, they actually have, at least in that particular wing of it, they actually have walls that are movable, so we can actually design the space in such a way so that our programming and meeting space and computer labs are independently accessible from the library itself, so that that space could still be used even when the library is closed.
It has better ADA access requirements, or ADA access, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move to more questions or comments, we do need to have a motion and a second. Councilor Mark.
That I move that the library district IGA be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mark, second by Jeff.
Right.
Oh, Brad?
Yes.
Okay. Further question or comment? Tom?
Yeah, so the existing library in the school is gonna stay where it's at, and everything in here is gonna be moved into those. So
Correct.
basically, there's gonna be 2 libraries,
Correct.
City, county
Yes.
and school. Okay.
Yeah, and our libraries serve obviously different functions, but we are actually also excited about the possibility of working with the school more and having students come over to our library as well. So we've already been working with the school district quite a bit on various projects. So we're pretty interested in seeing how more partnership opportunities, and not only with the school district, but also with the other entities that may be moving into that space. So there's the potential of a daycare, the county health department, things like that. It's a nice shared space.
Paul?
Yeah, if you will refer to the concept that the Downtown Association prepared for the community school concept, the whole idea of beginning to use that empty space at the school as a community center at a much higher quality and a better facility came out of the Downtown Revitalization Steering Committee. The library is the first one of those services to move that direction. We're thinking the same thing about the city's recreation program. As we've talked before, there is a international conference center available there. That is where fiber optic cable is located in town. So you could actually sit in that facility and participate in a conference in Ethiopia or Uganda or wherever you wanted to be at. So the capability there is tremendous. Both community colleges are going to be locating programs in there, as well as the health department and a couple of other youth programs. The priority is for children and families. So as we begin moving, keep in mind that this is only one of a number of steps to move the community closer to having a community center like that unused space over there.
If I remember correctly, I believe at their last meeting, county commissioners actually approved moving forward with seeing how the health department could fit into the space as well.
And Buzzy, one of the things that I know families in Cascade Locks have appreciated with the expanded hours the library's district has been able to offer is the juxtaposition of our recreation night as well as the library hours ending. So there's a little bit of overlap there, and we've kind of dealt with some concerns about supervision and things, but I think that's been a real value to the community. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to coordinate that kind of a move with our rec program at the same time.
Oh, yeah,
So that
absolutely.
it'll benefit the
We really
community.
like having rec kids there.
Okay. Great. Great. And so as from a financial standpoint, this IGA is kind of just, is renewing the pre-existing agreement. Okay. And forgive me if you've said this already, but is there a timeline where that move to the school?
Not a
what the
set
winter
one
school-
right now. Part of what I have to look at is I'm looking for some grant opportunities because we would have to do some retrofitting of the space. In particular, libraries now, we're kind of grandfathered in here, but libraries now, you basically have really hardcore earthquake regulations in terms of, your shelving against the wall, things like that. So, we're kind of looking at how to design the space and also in, getting some new shelving, new furniture.
Oh,
Down, excuse me, from the recreation, excuse me, from the recreation side, I know up here we're able to use the gym, it's fairly easy to use the gym. The gym's being used down there in the evenings and in the afternoons. I don't know what kind of issues trying to get, because that's part of recreation is the gym use.
Right.
And will they continue using this one, or would it move down to the point where only that gym is being used? Yeah, Paul, you got an answer to that.
Right. Councilman, the ultimate plan is that both of these facilities could be used in tandem, but the majority of the program would eventually move over to the school in that community center concept. That would open up this facility for other uses, none the least of which could be basketball or volleyball, but they both would be used together.
Okay.
yeah, if I understand when you say southeast, I think you're talking about what used to be the elementary wing, the newer classrooms in the school here. Sure, that's just, all I know is when I was there, but it's right next to the playground and the covered.
Right, it's the one that's on it's actually on the parking lot side. And it's in the, when I did the new wing of the building.
Right, so there's already some outdoor
Right.
and a covered playground places if we wanted to do a recreation program there.
Exactly.
And of course, there's the school gym too, that becomes part of it. So,
Yeah, we've had some really productive meetings among all of the partners that are looking into it. And I don't know about what Paul thinks, but I thought, kind of what spaces people want to use and how they want to use it, I thought fell into place. We're falling into place quite well. Not really arguing over anything.
It's a lot of space.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the approval of the library district intergovernmental agreement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Council.
Right, we'll bring now to the floor, action item B, which is the approval of resolution 1233 declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. We did just have a public hearing on that. Paul, I'll turn it over to you for your staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Mary Ann will give this report.
Thank you, Paul. You have before you the resolution to accept proposed uses of state revenue. What you're doing tonight is authorizing us to proceed to inform the state that we would like to receive our state revenues. And this allows me to send the proper paperwork to the state so we can get on that list.
Thank you, Mary Ann. We do not have anyone sign up for public comment. The next step is council motion and second.
Make a motion,
Go ahead.
make a motion to approve resolution 1233 to elect state revenue sharing funds.
Second. Okay. if I get this right this time, motion by Jeff, second by Randy. Okay, now we'll open it up for council comment, question, or discussion. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of resolution 1233 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll turn now to action item C, approval of resolution 1234, extending the City of Cascade Locks workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the city and repealing resolution 1216. We did have a staff report on that, also prepared by Mary Ann. Paul, will she be giving the staff report on this as well?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, Mary Ann will give this report.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I have prepared a resolution 1234 that extends our workers' compensation to our volunteers and board. There is one change this year that I'm asking that council does, and that is reducing the monthly minimum wage, assumed monthly wage for public safety volunteers. You have also a volunteer election information sheet that says that the minimum assumed wage is $800 per volunteer per month. I talked to Paul, we felt that this change in the 800 would save the fire department some valuable money. In the past, we've had a $2,500 assumed monthly wage, and if we can get it down to 800, that saves us roughly, I believe it was $3,000. So I'm asking for council to change that to 800, which is the minimum that we can do. You can do it in increments of 100, so if you choose that you want to go higher than 800, you're more than welcome to do that. This is basically in allowing us to do that, and then I will contact CIS to make that change.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I would not have anyone sign up to comment on this, so we'll move now to a council motion and second.
I make a motion to approve resolution 1234.
Okay, Jeff has made a motion, is there a second? Brad had the second. Council question, comment, or discussion? Brad?
It's pretty self-explanatory. I think any time the city can save money, that's probably a good thing.
Can you explain what the impact is if there were to be a claim for one of our volunteers?
If there was a claim, what this does cover, it would cover his medical fees, any prescription fees, and plus an assumed wage, and I'm dealing with this right now with CIS because we do have an injured volunteer, is that, and this is new to me, but I'm proceeding on the instructions that if there was a call and he was able to respond to that call, then he would get assumed wages for that call. Now keep in mind, this is a monthly wage. It's not based on every call, it's a monthly wage. So right now, if he goes on 5 calls in a month, it's my understanding he's eligible for $800. But again, this is new to me because we've never had a volunteer that has been injured like this, that has been unable to respond to calls. So that's what I'm getting from CIS at this point. Where if we would have had the $2,500, he could have been possibly eligible for $2,500. It just helps their wage if they are unable to respond. I mean, because he's been out for over a week now.
But the volunteers, we aren't paying them a wage.
No, we are not. No, we are not.
Okay, so is this to cover then what they might be earning at their job if they?
I'm like I said, Mayor, I'm still learning on this one because this is the first time I've ever had a volunteer do a claim.
Okay.
And all I'm providing to CIS is how many calls we've had since he's been out. Now, how they prorate it, how they do that, I'm not really certain about that. Because it's still new to me. So I will know more after I talk to CIS, after I find out how many calls that he missed.
So if we take this action now, is it decreasing the benefit that gets paid to our volunteers? I guess that's what I'm getting at. When I
Yeah,
say
instead
what's
of
the impact?
2,500, it's decreasing to 800.
Just for the wage,
Just for
though,
the
not
wage.
for the cost.
Not for the medical expenses, prescription, anything that involves the accident, emergency room visit, doctor visits, that's still covered. This is just an assumed minimum wage, is all this is. It has nothing to do with us covering their medical expenses, that will still be covered.
Okay. And, yeah, so right now, we don't know how much, at what rate they're going to cover,
I do not know, I'm still working with our adjuster on that.
but it's up to 2,500, is that correct?
For this particular accident, yes.
Right.
After this one goes into effect, it'll be up to $800.
Okay. Per month?
Mhm. And I'm sure what they do is prorate it based on the number of calls, so, and maybe averaging out how much time our calls are. So
Because what I'm not quite catching is how they're trying to figure out what the wage would be if a volunteer went on a call, because it's a volunteer, he's not getting a wage.
I know, but if I understand right, according to our workers' comp and the volunteer coverage, we are saying that we are gonna cover a portion of what they could have responded. Now, again, I'm sure CIS knows that we are all volunteers, so I honestly can't answer that question until I get more information from CIS and how this is affecting us as far as what I'm dealing with right now.
Have we made any attempt to talk to our volunteers about, what they might be, how they might perceive this?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Is there any risk
Randy.
in waiting a meeting? We could find that out and maybe learn more from CIS, or? Because it's a time-sensitive thing with them.
It's tied to the budget in any way?
Well, it is tied to the budget because I've adjusted the budget based on the $800 minimum wage. Can it wait till next meeting? I don't see a problem with that, as long as I get it to them. And that's just a matter of emailing it to our CIS claims department. So if you choose that you want more information, I can sure get that for you in regards to how this is gonna affect the volunteers and how they do the minimum wage. I have no problem with that.
Okay, more question, comment, or discussion from the council? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 1234 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
I'm also opposed. Motion carries. Kathy, did you get that? Okay. Move now to action item D, approve recommendation to enter into a contract with Brown and Kaiser for electric rate study. Paul, I believe you have prepared a staff report. Will you be presenting it?
Yes. I can't give them all to Mary Ann. I was gonna give this one to Mark.
Yeah.
Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, this is a recommendation from your Economic Development Subcommittee, who met and reviewed and interviewed the two firms who applied to do this work. Because of the scheduling of the meeting, the mayor and Randy were not able to attend that meeting, so the interview was conducted by Mark, Tracy, and myself. So we're bringing forward to you a recommendation that Brown and Kaiser be retained as the firm to assist in the electric rate study. And remember, there are three component parts to that. One is an assessment of your current rate structure relative to cost. Two, an assessment of the substation issue to determine what's the impact of bringing the substation into the city system on your rate structure, and can you afford to do that, and what are those parameters? And third, the development of a proposed rate structure that would facilitate economic development. and then they have that done by the end of the year. So what the subcommittee is recommending is that this firm be retained to do that study, and that we go and do a scope of work and come back with a contract within 30 days in the amount not exceed $40,000. And I think all the questions that one might have for that, Mark is ready to answer.
Well, I had some comments, you know, because I was there, and the substations, they were really knowledgeable, you know, on the substations. Also, they understand that for us to have public meetings and you know, bring up rate studies or rate increases, that, you know, they're the professionals and they're willing to have town hall meetings so the public can, you know, ask questions, and I think that is really, that'd be really helpful. And I think they're really open to, you know, letting people, you know, ask tough questions, and because they're professionals, and I highly recommend them. I think that they'll do a good job. So.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, we also did not have anyone sign up to comment on this agenda item, so we'll proceed now to council motion and second.
I'll approve the recommendation to enter into a contract with Brown and Kaiser for electric rate study.
Okay, we have a motion from Brad. Is there a second?
Second?
Second from Randy. Council question, comment, or discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of entering into a contract with Brown and Kaiser for the electric rate study signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Okay, and that does it for our action agenda tonight. We'll turn now to the next item on the agenda, which is the appearance of interested citizens sharing a variety of perspectives on issues that face our community. And we want to clarify that the purpose of this is for council to hear different perspectives. It's not about attacking any one individual person, whether they be council member, staff, or otherwise. And we do ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes. So we'll start off with Virginia. Thank you.
My name is Virginia Fitzpatrick, and I've been a citizen here since 1994.
Just a second. Paul, could you just move slide that microphone?
Absolutely. Yes, you do.
Anyway,
Thank you.
I just wrote comments because I do better when I'm reading. But at the budget and council meeting last week, it was stated many times that the people spoke. They wanted a paramedic and a fire chief, referring to the survey and the recommendations of the task force. That is simply not true. The numbers do not bear this out. The so-called survey represented a total of 134 people. There are 508 residential utility accounts, and the survey went out to those places. That is barely over 20%. So I would conclude that people have not really spoken at all. So apparently with that scant information, most of you felt you were truly representing the citizens. I don't agree with that. The numbers don't add up. Never mind about the charter in 2008, people voted that no increases should be raised unless it's by a vote. Now you can call it administrative, or you can call it whatever you want. The point is that fees were raised without regard to the city charter and the people who live here. My math tells me that $1 a month I paid is now going to be $7 a month. So instead of paying $12 a year, I'll pay $84 a year, because some people thought that they knew what was best for me. If that isn't bad enough, almost every one of you voted to also increase the internal costs of the TV, broadband, water, sewer, and electrical from 5% to 7%. Now, we all know these funds are doing poorly, and they will pass the cost on to us citizens. We will just have to wait and see how much that increase will affect us. Another $7 a month, another $10 a month. According to the Hood River County Elections website, there are 589 registered voters in Cascade Locks. Only 380 turned out to the last vote, which was the recall, and that was only 64% of the voters. Like I said last week, I was gone most of last summer, which is a very good thing. From what I've been reading in a lot of the last minutes, last year, it was definitely a soap opera, and I'm glad I wasn't here for that. But anyway, I'm kind of disturbed about this council's action last week, just voting to increase fees, no biggie, no real discussion. There was no let's take two voters I'm very surprised because each and every one of you but Lance and Tom are appointed. And Lance was appointed to be mayor. I would have thought that since you went to the trouble of applying and being appointed, you might really want to work for the good of the town, the people, and all the people. Not a select few that try to throw their money and wants around, but everyone. All I see is a minority of people working to make the rest of us, trying to make the rest of us pay for what they think is necessary. I see that being more of a dictatorship than democracy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. Vera, up to talk about fundraising for emergency medical services.
Oh, a couple of things.
And other things.
And other things, yes. Well, I'm Vera Sanders Tennant, and I live here and have for quite some time. I've noticed that some things are happening here in Cascade Locks that could be fixed by some fundraising, I think, more than anything else, and by people that really want to do it. You know, there's so much, everybody here feels like that it's good that we have a fire department, but we can't afford it. So I'm thinking maybe people might want to think on another way of doing that through the people that live here. It just seems to me that there's so many ways to earn money, and a lot of people might want to contribute to it. When you go donate blood, you get this little badge, and it, you know, says, you know, that you did this, or if you used to a long time ago, you'd get, when you voted for something, you get a badge and stuff. And people like to toot their horn. They need a little bit of something for what they get, you know, when they do something good. And I'm thinking, why in the world aren't you guys thinking in this direction? $450,000 sounds like so much money to everybody, but everybody wants to do something. They just don't know how, so I think that maybe you might get some people to do some organizing in fundraising. It's a simple matter to do it. It's not, you can get a book on it. It's simple to do this stuff. You know, and I know $5 to one person is like $1,000 to another. If you don't do like the hospitals and stuff do, where they give you the brick and you put the name on it, and you know for how much you donated and stuff, you wouldn't be embarrassing the people here. The other thing I'm really, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that, and that you've got a lot of people that would do that kind of thing. But where I'm really still ticked off like I was last week, my first meeting, is that there are laws in our state constitution that any of you know, because you're educated people, or you wouldn't be sitting there, and you represent us. So therefore, the behaviors are sometimes very inappropriate for the law. It is the law, and it says, you know, it's Article 1, Section 8, that we have the right to freedom of speech. And, you know, that's the people's right. But you can't just go throwing people out because they don't like you don't like what they're saying. That's just not okay. The other is Article 1, Section 26. We are your boss. That's the way we are. We're your boss. That's who we are. You're not our boss. You aren't. And that is, we have the right to instruct you if we feel something is not right and something is wrong. It's sort of like, I have 7 children, 29 grandchildren, and 30 great-grandkids, okay? And I don't let them tell me what to do, okay? So, I mean, that's just the way it is. And you absolutely, under Oregon state law, have no right, as long as it's a peaceful assembly. I saw nobody threatening you or doing anything. A cop was at the door, a nice cop, I like him. But anyway, the fact is there was nothing going on here that had that kind of inappropriate behavior. You need to be called on it, like I would call my grandkids on it. You know, it just is an embarrassment to me, to people who represent me, that they're throwing fits worse than my great-grandchildren. I don't get that behavior.
and I think it's just inappropriate. Okay, now, and you're violating the law. If you're elected officials, there's everything from teachers to there's attorneys that come here. You got, look at you, and here you are doing this kind of behavior. Well, kids that are coming up, they're gonna see that crap. They're gonna see it, and it's not okay. Now, I know you've been reprimanded by a grandmother, but by gosh, if the shoe fits, Cinderella needs to wear the darn thing, okay? It's a simple matter. Now, and you do not have the right to suppress people's opinions. You don't. I'm not, whether it be federal, state, or local, you do not have the right to do that. Okay? So that needs to be stopped. I don't know, we are the people, and you are the boss. And I wrote down a little bit about this other fundraising issue. You know, Fish Food Bank, they give out a card for food stamps. I mean, you know, for people to get the food. It's a little plastic thing, and they punch it out each and every month when somebody does something. And I think that if you did fundraising, you could do a double thing. And that is maybe like we have those yard sales, that yard sale, that very important yard sale to everybody in the community. Yard sales make money. People feel like they're contributing stuff. It's a good thing. But if you did set up a poll at the fire department on how much the people were getting for the yard sale, or maybe even if you had some of the volunteers go there, they would be able to collect the money, the people would feel good about it, and you could put the poll up for how much you're making. Have a few of those yard sales, and everybody would feel like they're doing something. There's a million ways to make money. But you just got to figure it out, okay? And so I gave you one little silly idea. And if you gave the people that little card that said I donated to Cascade Locks that they could put here, everybody would be tooting their horn, wearing that thing everywhere. And as long as you don't do something like make a color of the card for how much the money is that somebody donated, everybody doesn't have to know how much was donated. You could, the fire department does, but there could be representatives in these places. Anyway, just an idea, because I believe all of us want the same thing. We're just going at it differently than we should be going at it, because we should be united in this city and do the right thing. And each and every one of you represent us. So then, when you're having these behaviors, you're representing me. Now, I'm really known for being a temper-tantrum person. That's just who I am. But if I was sitting in your seat, that would be like taking a snowball and putting it on a fire and saying that it's not going to melt. To me, that would be the way it is. I'm just trying to tell you something. Okay. I don't know what else to tell you guys other than I do severely hope that you're listening to one of us or some of us on what we're trying to say to you. We don't want to be railroaded into something we don't need, but that we can't afford. But we do want to be a party to making what everybody people want to have a fire department. They want the EMS, but we don't want to be railroaded into it. There's got to be other ways to make the money that's necessary without hurting and harming the disabled and the elderly. This is not a rich community. And you just plain got to start hearing us, because we're trying to talk to you. You're a whole bunch of people. That's what I got to say.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Okay, and we'll move now to our reports and presentations section. We have a guest with us named Robert Ball, and he's here to talk to us about some development concepts for our property on Wanapah Street. Paul?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The acquisition of Mr. Ball to come in and speak with you came as a result of your direction to us to seek developers or brokers to take a look at the old fire station as opposed to the typical traditional method that we've always used, which is to pay for an appraisal and then have the appraisal either be disagreed over or sit and not do anything. So if you'll recall, when we brought the old fire station to you for direction, you directed us to bring brokers and developers in to look at the facility. Out of that came a contact from Councilman Helfrich to Robert Ball, and Mr. Ball has agreed to come in and speak to you about development. He's probably going to ask you a lot of questions or make you ask him a lot of questions. But Robert Ball has been a major developer in the Portland area for some time, and he brings a unique perspective on development that we hope will help the city as it moves forward with the old fire station. Robert, you're on.
Okay. Well, it's really my pleasure to be here to help you. I would really like you, I'll stay here as long as you need me, but feel free to ask me as many questions as you want to ask me. So I was asked to come here to give you my thoughts on any type of questions that you have related to development. I don't know your city that well, which may be a good thing, because I can just give you my honest opinion about what I think, coming from the perspective of a development person that's been doing this for about 25 years. And so if you want to ask me anything about planning processes as I see them, any examples, what you can do as a city to bring development or to bring people and things, jobs to your city, I'm here to answer and to help you in any way I can. So I don't know if that's the best way to approach it, but I would suggest if you want, just fire away. Here, what I do know is that you have a piece of property that's an old fire station you're interested in developing. You're trying to figure out, what's the best way for us to approach potentially redeveloping that piece of property. So I can start off giving you a few thoughts or just have you fire away and start asking questions.
Well, why don't you just start off giving us a few thoughts and your perspective on that basic scenario and problem, and then hopefully questions will be generated.
Okay, well, first of all, for process, what I believe you should do, if you have a piece of property that the city owns that you would like to have developed, what I'd recommend is that you get as wide a coverage as possible in letting people know about the potential development opportunity. What I do in order to do that is probably, there are a number of people that maybe even Portland-based or other cities would be interested in doing a project like that. I don't know how big the building is, I can't remember, I think you told me, but I would probably go through a process of interviewing 3 or 4 of the larger brokerage houses in the Portland area and tell them what you have, take pictures, and interview those brokers and their qualifications to cast a wide net for you. Usually when I hear about something as development, it usually comes through brokers. We get sheets, I get them emailed to me probably daily. And they'll usually show some development opportunity, it'll talk about it in brief, and if I have an interest in it, then I'll call, that person. So for your particular fire station, I would try to do that, and interview the brokers, find out who you think would be the best fit for your community, and then work with them to get it out into the community as wide and far as possible. And then you're going to generate some interest, and when those interested parties come in, you might put out something like an RFP, request for a proposal, from that group of developers that may be interested in working with you and the project. And then you're going to have a much better concrete idea of how you move forward and which person you think would be the best fit for your city.
Jeff?
Rob, have you seen actually the fire hall at all when you drove into town?
I looked for it, I hadn't. I didn't see it. I was born and raised in Oregon, on the Oregon coast in the Astoria area, and as lived here as long as I have, I was actually very unfamiliar with Cascade Locks as a city, which I think also I can shed some light about that. I was pleasantly surprised actually when I drove in. I thought it was a beautiful little area. I saw the motel right away. It was very clean and nice. And so I was paying attention, frankly, to that little area and just, seeing and trying to observe sort of my first initial thoughts when I came into the city, but it was very pleasant.
The question I have is the developmental approach that we're looking at or wish to undertake maybe. You've done a variety of projects from the former Myron Frank warehouse into condominiums. to your newest venture with the Parker Apartments, which is, the design is actually pretty unique for the Pearl, what you've done with that, a different unique design. We have a downtown plan that's considered what they call the Cascadia theme, and that Cascadia theme would be considered Timberline Lodge, open post beam exposure with rocks. Just in that approach there as a developer, or as somebody that has developed, how would it be for us to proceed and ask, because that's part of the downtown plan, the requirements for a downtown, to have that is that requirement moving through and developing that property, so it kind of goes with our theme that we're trying to go with. And how is that dissuasive to potential developers, or how is that for being positive for developing to come in?
I think if you're not overburdensome in how you regulate that, I think it's not a problem at all. But what you're basically talking about is design review. I'm really used to that. So when I do a project in the city of Portland, we go through a design review process. It is frustrating though when you go through that process, when you put forth a very good project for the economics, and if you get bogged down in that process too much. So what I would encourage you to do is really understand the economics of the deal, and if you can see that it's just frankly impossible for whoever you get to develop it to go much further than they're going, you're just gonna have to recognize that and not be overburdensome. So I think that most developers that wanna do a good job, if you pick the right one, they're going to want that project to be successful. It's gonna be successful if it looks great inside, and if it's a place that people wanna go. So you can talk about that as a design guideline, and let them go to work and work with them a little bit. But again, I'd encourage you, if you want to promote your city and grow it and make some things happen, you just have to work really closely in partnership, and just don't over-regulate or overburden. Because I think it's going to be difficult in a city this size because of the economics to build. So some of the materials are just not going to be able to have happen in a reasonable way.
And so I guess that's another question is, you've done some looks like stuff in Astoria, maybe, and now this project in Portland and all over. But from that perspective, what do you think it's going to take to attract an interested developer to a town like this, where it's a small town, but it's a unique setting that has the potential to draw a lot of people in?
I think that first of all, you have to have a plan for what it is that you want to see as a city. What is it that you want to bring to the city? What is it that you want to draw people here? The first thought that came to my mind, I may be speaking out of turn because I really don't understand how the windsurfing works, but my first thought, is this a great windsurfing place? I don't know if it is or isn't. Whatever that, if it is, or as an example, let's say that was the thing you picked and that's in your plan.
It's actually sailing sailboats.
Okay, great.
So,
Okay,
but it's actually been rated as one of the premier elite sailing venues in the world.
It's a perfect example then. So if sailing is it, then what you want to do is provide the infrastructure for people to get from here to the river, and to be able to dock those boats, and to be able to get them in and out of your city, and to develop a plan in that great area you have when you first come into town. You want to make it interesting for people to come here. So if they have their boats and they sail in here and they dock, and or they're coming in and out of here, that we have a place to walk around and eat and do some shopping. So you think about what you want, what your vision is for the area, and what are your priorities that you want to, if you will, sell to the outside world, and then think about what you need to make that a great experience for people to come here and stay and spend their money. A developer is going to get really excited if they see a city that's firmly committed to a vision of a great area that they know the city's behind bringing people in to sail, and that they really want to encourage visitors to come in and shop, stay here, and again, spend their money. So for me, if I was coming and looking at the area, I want to know that you're committed to building the infrastructure to get the people from the water to downtown spot where you want to, centralize or focus your efforts initially. I'd want to see that, and I'd want to see that I'm going to build a new motel, or I'm going to build a restaurant, or a mixed-use project, or redo a project like a fire station, that you're going to encourage that. I don't really know how your city codes work here in terms of building. You probably are a county-based system. I don't know if you have the infrastructure to do.
We have our own planning commission and a contract planner to.
Who does the building codes?
The county.
The county.
Okay, that's what I figured, so. So you're a little hamstrung there. So what you'd want to do is make sure that you're really working closely with the county building officials to try as best as possible to make sure that they're not obstructionist in having, successful developments. And make sure you're working closely in good partnerships with the county. The city of Portland, we have our own building code officials, so we can take that on. If the city really wants to make something happen, like the district I did, the Pearl District, it's probably the most successful development on the entire west coast of the United States. And it really became because there was a phenomenal partnership between the city of Portland and the real estate developers that made it happen. The city committed to building infrastructure. In that case, we did use some urban development and tax increment financing, but there were actually contracts signed that said if the city did X, then the developers would do Y. We took down the viaduct next to one of my projects at the Marshall Wells, built a street, put a streetcar in. The city committed to building roads and streets and putting in the water, and we said that we're going to build these buildings. Primarily one large property owner, Hoyt Street Properties. But again, it was a partnership between those interests. So I would encourage you to do everything you can to work in partnerships with the people that are interested in coming in and investing in the community in the way that you want them to invest. And make sure that it's the kind of development and investment that you want to see as it fits into your plan that you believe is correct for your community. Because it's really, your citizens have to decide what you want. Once they do that, your job is to try to facilitate that as easy as you can. So I'm going to come in, I'll give you a great example, keep the STC fees down. I don't even know if you have this here, system development charges.
Yeah, we're doing a good job of that.
What?
We're doing a good job of that, keeping the
You want to,
fees down.
My current project, there's a front page article in the Business Journal about it. Mine are $2.5 million.
Wow.
Just to build. That hurts sometimes. It's, it's the project's barely to get the financing. I'm sort of up against a wall, and so there's always that issue for me. When I do that, make it so the zoning's as flexible as possible for the development in the Pearl District. One of the beauties of what happened there was we have something called EXD zoning, which means it allows for retail, commercial office, residential, even light industrial. School can be down there, so we made it possible to have a wide variety of uses in a small area, and that brings a vitality. It lets people work, play, live there. Not that that would necessarily fit here, but again, think about what you want. Make sure you're flexible.
So more about how it looks than the actual application. I mean,
Say that again.
more about how the development looks as opposed to what the actual function is there.
No, well, really what I'm saying is the point is that if you give people the opportunity to have a retail store and even a little office space close by it, and again, I don't know anything about your zoning, you even have it, people can live up above, retail place maybe, whatever those things are, have the flexibility to do those things that make it enticing for people to come in and have some ways to be able to make the developments happen.
You mentioned tax increment financing. What do you think about an urban development district? That's a subject that's come up a couple of times here. The market's low right now, so now would be a good time if we were going to get an urban development district set up here in the community. Do you think that's a good
I do if you use it wisely. Because as they continue and as they grow and as time goes by, if you have too many of those, then the issue is it taking away, you know, funding for basic services? Because you basically set them up, you use the revenue that comes in from property taxes to pay off the bonds that you use to create the infrastructure. That works really, really well if you do a good job, but then you don't overuse it. And I would argue, use the funds to do a bunch of stuff you don't need to do. I may be incorrect in these numbers. The Pearl District, for example, had, I think, north of $350 million of extra bonding capacity, which was pretty amazing. So it was so successful as we built all those buildings. The property tax revenues were so great, the city really could afford to build $350 million plus of more stuff if they wanted to. There was an attempt to use those dollars to build schools way on the other side of town. Some of the people that originally started the urban renewal threatened to file a lawsuit. And ultimately, some agreement was made, I can't remember, but they came to an agreement with the city to reduce the dollar amount the city would use to spend. So, in other words, if you develop that credit card or that ability to have bonding capacity, don't overuse it, so it takes away bonding capacity, but it's a very useful tool if you use it wisely, I would say. And that, again, I may be wrong a little bit off the number, it's back now about 5 years, but.
So, a couple of things on that, and that you brought that up, I had another question too, but, does it become a problem, or if you got basically a small town and a small urban renewal district, you're gonna have a hard time generating very much money for the infrastructure that you wanna do. So when you do it, you have to really be careful about, what you can generate and what you plan on, what kind of infrastructure you're gonna try to get with that thing too. Is that,
Yeah,
that's part of the
absolutely.
process then?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it, if it were me, and I'm looking, and again, I don't know your downtown, I'd be looking at what makes the most sense for us to try to concentrate our efforts initially to grow our vision of the sailing capital of the West Coast. So wherever that area is where you're gonna spend the least amount on infrastructure, try to figure out where you wanna focus. Again, think about if you're coming here, I was pleasantly surprised when I go someplace, if I'm gonna go stay, you know, I'm gonna have my sailboat, I'm gonna get off it at night and go walk around kind of a nice little area and maybe go in a diner where I can eat. And maybe I'm not a huge beer drinker, but I know a lot of my friends are, a brew pub or something, and have a great place. So if somebody comes and spends 2 or 3 nights here on their sailboat or whatever they're doing, or in a hotel, they feel like this is a great little place, and they're gonna recommend it to their friends, and more people will come, and you can sort of build, and the more things that you can encourage businesses to come in and offer sailboating supplies or windsurfing supplies, or I noticed some signs, again, as a lifelong Oregonian, I was remiss in not even knowing about your city, but I saw hiking trail kind of stuff up around. All that kind of stuff can be so, you know, advertised, and then you develop the place where people want to go.
So,
That was my other question on that is, that's what we're also pushing is the hiking and biking as trying to tie trails and all that together. But so when you're doing this, do you take something as the main thing and tie all these extra ones into it, or do you try to pick one of those things as the main thing, but still we're gonna do actually 5 things, but there's one main thing, or there's several main things?
I think you pick 1 or 2 main things, and you tie that all together. Again, I think you're thinking about an experience, and this is just my opinion of people wanting to come here. Whatever is drawing people now, you figure out how to make that experience better when they get here. And if sailing is where you want to go, and that's what you can advertise, when they do come, and they're bringing a family that's on a sailboat or a couple, and they dock, what is there to do in Cascade Locks? And if they have a great hiking trail thing they can do, and they have a great place to eat, and they have a walking sort of, you know, map and some other things, it's going to be a great place for them to come for a few days and do some things. And so I sort of build on all of that as much as you can, because it's beautiful out here.
one of the things that we've talked about, just along those lines, is the outdoor adventure economy. So that might include sailing, you know, and a lot of times the sailing races happen during the July and August months. But it also might include, you know, mountain biking. We have a new family-friendly mountain biking trail just built last fall. And then just as recently as last Thursday, we heard a report from a group of Portland State students about making Cascade Locks kind of the hub of hiking the gorge. And some great work on promoting that. So when I think about all of those together really fit into one theme of, you know, adventure economy. Not everyone can buy a sailboat, right? And we have a problem right now with being able to get those sailboats across the railroad tracks. But unless you're disabled, just about everybody can hike. You know, and so that's something that's available already, sort of the low-hanging fruit, but it's also something that people already enjoy here. It's just a phenomenal asset we have. So
The other thing I do is I think probably one of the most visited places in Oregon is Multnomah Falls.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you're already doing this, but trying to develop a partnership so that people going to Multnomah Falls, so many people I think come into Portland. I know I have guests that come in from out of town from all over the world, and they always want to go see Multnomah Falls, but it seems to me Cascade Locks would be a great place for someone to spend a night or two when they want to go to the falls and then go on other hikes and things like that. So how can you partner and figure out ways to capture that marketplace for vast numbers of people come in from the Portland area that want to go see Multnomah Falls, and let them know that there's an opportunity for them to come out here and spend the night and have a great time while they're here and see and do something.
Jeff?
The mayor hit on it, talked about kind of a recreation destination. That seems to be the path of least resistance that we're getting from outside influences. We've had two projects, or one project for sure, and another possible project coming in, where it's met a lot of resistance at the national level from outside of our borders of Oregon. Nested Waters is a possible project, and the Resort and Casino is another potential project that's on hold. Those type of projects. What is your experience in bringing in other light industrial type things or businesses in to develop the approach? Because the port has several, I don't know, I want to say over hundreds of acres, but they have a lot of acreage that's prime real estate property along the riverfront or other things that are out there. What has you been experienced developing light industrial or bringing business in? How have you been able to?
I really don't have any kind of experience in terms of, you know, bringing anybody into a port property, but that's actually a really interesting point. That, you know, if you have a port property like this, now that casino thing's coming, if you can land those kinds of businesses or things to happen in your community, that's just going to only make it better for your community. So if you can work with the port to figure out good, sustainable jobs, you know, what is the port good for here, that's only going to do more to enliven your city as a place to thrive and live. So, you know, I would encourage you to do what you can to work with the ports to make those kinds of things happen. That's how you build your city up.
Here in Cascade Locks, I think we both have a big opportunity and a little bit of a drawback. First of all, we have a lot of beautiful scenic property and a lot of property in the town similar to what Troutdale was 15. Whole north side of the street there was nothing. So it allowed an opportunity for a developer with a vision to be able to go in and recreate the town. Cascade Locks is similar in the fact that we have a lot of opportunities as far as sailing, we have hiking, and it's a great destination, but we're having a hard time reaching critical mass where we have enough amenities to draw somebody. But as we were talking about the port owns a very large percentage of the vacant property in town, both industrial and commercial properties on the north side of the street. So Cascade Locks as well has a big opportunity to be able to, if we can find a developer or multiple developers who want to come in and put in a couple of these amenities that we're lacking once we reach critical mass, a brew pub, you know, a couple of other retail businesses, then I think the more that we add a few amenities, I think then people will have more reasons to come and hike, which they do anyway, but reasons to come and actually stay in the town and make it a destination.
So I think what you can do to facilitate that is to make it really clear what your plan is, to make sure that your rules and regulations are, make that as easy as possible to happen. And that means working in close partnership with the county on all the building stuff, if that's what it takes. And really demonstrate a commitment to those who may be considering coming in and investing, that you're serious about this and you're going to ensure that they're successful in what they're doing. The basics of, I can give you the thumbnail sketch of what it's like to develop, big or small, which is you come in and you look at a piece of property, an existing building, you see I've renovated and built new, and you look at that building and you say, what's it gonna cost me? How much is it gonna cost me to fix that thing up or build it? What do I think I can get in rent when it's done? What kind of revenue do I think I can see from that? And am I gonna be able to cover it? With the revenue that comes, it's very simple. It's really not that complex. I had an old lumberman in Oregon tell me one time, development's pretty easy, just make sure more money's coming in than it's going out.
That's what I've been doing all these years.
So, I mean, but really it's simple, and what I do, I'm used to very complex regulations in the city of Portland. We have, FARs and heights and all of this stuff you have to navigate, but it really is all the same principle. If I was gonna come in and look at an old fire station, what are your allowed regulations and uses? What's it gonna cost me in fees? How much is it gonna cost to renovate it? And what do I think I can get in rent? And will it pencil out? Can I get financing to do that? I think it always comes down to that. So, but again, I would encourage you to build off of some of the great stuff you have happening right when you come in, because it's much different than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, I know our town isn't huge, or it isn't long, but we do have some choice, river views. And so, but one of the things too is that we're seasonal. And so, do you go high density, or do you go, the mixture of residential and commercial, and, because that property is choice. I mean, it's, and our town isn't huge, so do we really have to be picky on what, what comes in here?
Boy, I think that there's a couple ways you can go. There's some really great places as I've traveled throughout the United States that have really ensured in those choice places that that's where they really ensure that the things that are being built there are really done well. And what I mean by that is just really think through what you want it to look like when it's done. I was just down in Carmel, California, like Holy Beach, and it's just like, wow, when you drive through, they have very restrictive height things, but they take advantage of the natural scenery around the area, and you can scale that in different places, and you can really do a great job doing that. In terms of seasonal, that's a tough one, because part of it may be how do you figure out, so as you grow, that this is a place, how do you overcome seasonality? You have people live here full time.
Mm-hmm.
You have people live here full time by one job creation. Port properties, are you bringing in some businesses, and would you say Nestle?
Nestle, possible
Yeah,
project,
Nestle,
Nestle
or
water.
whatever those jobs are. What takes away from the seasonality of a thriving community, I think, is you got people living and working. And so think about job creation, think about a place for, this could be a great place for people to come and retire, frankly. We catch a lot of those in the Pearl District where I develop. We have a lot of people come, this is where they want to retire because they're tired of the big house, and we really actually went after those folks in the demographics. We're going after, and that creates, people are always living down there. So there's a number of ways you can attack that, but again, think through, that's a really good point. That's one of your goals, and how are we going to get that to happen so we're not just seasonal, so we can make it survive. You don't want to be Detroit Lake, right, where it just dies.
Right.
So, you talked a little bit about the simplicity of development, and, I guess the key question there is, what does the developer think they can get? And that's kind of where we're at, where, once things start rolling and you've got a couple businesses going up in that downtown and you start to get some synergy there, then it becomes a little bit more desirable. But, what can we do as a city to help kind of get over that hump, to try to encourage that first developer to take that risk? And one thing that's been suggested, and I'm just curious what your take on this would be, is, how important is it to that developer that's maybe taking that risk, that they have that anchor tenant already? I've talked to a number of people who are interested, for example, in our Wanapa Street, between, using it to make handmade boats, or which might be sailboats or canoes, to people, a couple guys that are here right now that are interested in brewing beer in that facility. Is that a key piece to get that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you want to structure a deal, what I would encourage you to do is, if I was coming into the property, I sure as heck wouldn't buy it, or finalize the sale until I had the tenant. I think is what you're asking me. So, yeah, as a seller, that happens all the time. People won't buy a commercial building or an office building until they know they have their anchor tenant. So what you can do as a city is, I think you're kind of already getting it, which is we may have to structure a deal where we give people time, but also make sure you have some benchmarks that they're also doing their share and making sure they're getting the project out and they're keeping up their end of the bargain in terms of let's say that they say, look, we want a tenant, and make sure that they're actively pursuing that tenant or tenants. So again, I would get as wide net as possible cast, as I told you when I first began, to get as many proposals in as possible, and then see who has the best financial strength and who has a great idea, and be flexible. Frankly, depending on, I don't know how old the building is, there's some buildings that they're so darn old, you might have to practically give it away to make it happen. I mean, the functional value of some ones you saw that I had were, big buildings. I wasn't really buying the building, I was buying the land, and you go from there, because the building wasn't worth anything. It just depends. It all comes down to numbers. It's only worth what the final product is and the rent. So again, I don't know what you're in it or what anybody's in anything. So
Jeff?
In any of your projects, your redevelopment projects, or your new from ground zero up projects, have you experienced any resistance to even the project itself from members that were affected by it? Hey, it's always been this way, we want to change. And how have you overcome that hurdle if that's happened as a developer?
Well, I always try to work with the community. I mean, a lot of my buildings were historic properties, so the Marshall Wells, the Avenue were both decrepit old warehouses that were both on the National Register of Historic Places. And the Avenue was actually going to be a big telco hotel, and they're going to put these big generators. So in that case, the neighborhood was very happy that I came in and I changed it into residential and turned into this beautiful building. But I have had resistance to different things, in the sense that, I've come in and I always just tried to be hands-on and do a good job and try to do design. And you always get folks that will not be happy with everything you're doing. So what you'll have to do as a council is ensure that the people that are coming in willing to take the risk, you got their back, and that things will, you will see resistance from some people. But I've always found what's interesting is sometimes I've had resistance and people have said, oh, this is kind of, I don't know, this is terrible, but then once it's finished, they kind of see the product. It's interesting, and they come around and realize, it's just having a vision and having the fortitude to get through that vision and stick to your guns and have a plan. And I think if people can see what you have planned and what your ideas are, and the community, your entire community, or at least the majority of your community buys into that plan, then I think you'll be okay. As long as you keep your word and you're transparent in your planning process of what you want to be as a city here, then as long as you keep your promises and you're open about what you do, once that plan's out and it's approved, then everybody kind of knows what the deal is and you can just move forward. But I would suggest, you know, be firm. There's been a few times I've had to go to the city council and, in Portland to get their support to make a project happen. And my argument's been, my latest project is an example, you know, it's gonna generate $2.5 million of revenues and fees to the city of Portland. It's a lot of money, and when it's finished, it's gonna generate $400,000 a year in property taxes, which goes to the county and city and everybody else. So, you know, at some point, you know, I've had to sit down and say, look, I need your support to make this happen, because this is a good thing for everybody involved.
You talked about the big brokerage houses in Portland. Is that something, I mean, would they talk to us, or obviously we're something pretty small here. Those are big folks that are used to big projects.
Well, it's not just the brokerage houses, there's people in the firms. Yeah, I think people will talk to you. You're always gonna get some senior person that's been there forever. It may not be the largest project on their plate, but they have 3 junior brokers that are on their team that are gonna do everything in the world to sell it under the guidance of somebody. So yeah, I think people will, absolutely.
So it's worth talking to those people and.
Sure, I think they'll help you out,
okay.
yeah. I mean, I think, because again, they may get interested in what you're doing out here. And I think there's some people that if you have a broad vision of where you're going, and your city passes, for lack of a better word, I just don't know what your planning process here. You know, we have in the city of Portland what's called the Central City Plan, and in the River District specifically for the Pearl District. The city has committed in those sets of plans, this is how we want it to look and feel, and this is what we want to have happen. When you really have that strong commitment and it's laid out, that's when you're gonna have people that are interested if they see things happening like the port stuff happening, or the Nestle, or potential casino, whatever it is that you want to have happen here. That's when you're gonna see the people come in and say, hey, it may not be a bad idea to come in and buy that piece of land, because over time, as this plan unfolds, we can make this happen. So as a city, you have to commit to the infrastructure, the planning, and you have to know, and the folks coming in that are investing have to know that you're gonna live up to your end of the bargain. And that they feel confident, because they don't want to, no one's gonna come in and invest a bunch of money in your land if they feel, you know, they're not gonna support to get the job done.
Randy?
You kind of described the roller coaster we've been on. We have a downtown development plan, we had a casino, we had investors come in.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're at, is we have this one small parcel building that we'd like to see some use in it to kind of be that starting business. You know, I like what you're hearing about the downtown development stuff. But we're to the point where nothing's happened in this town for like 5 decades. And we're needing a start or a kick. That's,
I think
bring that interest back in. And we have a nice hotel, and that's been recently, but.
if you have that plan, and then it's cast wide, that's what I mean. Like frankly, again, I'm a lifelong Oregonian, I've never been here.
Yeah.
And I was born and raised here, I drive by here all the time when I'm on my way to Bend. I've just never pulled off the road. So how do you change that? You change that by reputation. And so I think, yeah, you can get people interested, but you as a community have to go out and sell yourselves and want to have people know who you are and where you are, and you'll get that net.
Need a brand identity.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, so I think those brokers will, and other people will come, and that gets excitement and it makes things happen, but you have to be the ones that believe in it. Go out and sell it.
Jeff?
You touched on this a little bit. We have a tourism committee that's trying to bring in tourism and different items. How much more successful would it be if we had a marketing type of strategy also with tourism, and using part of that as a marketing in here? Because you said you never stopped here, you've never been here, didn't know what's going on. I mean, Tom and I talked about having a salmon bake and different things like that to create these different venues for people to come see us. But as what people know is we got the Charburger, they stop at the Charburger, and we got the East Winds Drive-In, big ice cream cones. Because when I tell people where I'm at the big ice cream cones. How much more marketing, what type of marketing strategy would you think to get that word out there, where we're at, what we're doing? what the potential is here? How much do you see as that, in your eyes as a developer?
Yeah, my gut reaction as developer is, what are you known for? Like, I know what's Silverton known for.
Falls.
Right. And, you know, the Frank Lloyd Wright House down where, you know, there's different places where you know that this is sort of what you're getting. So you need to go out and figure out what are those key things, the sailing capital, that you really get out there. And frankly, with word of mouth and
Charles Lindbergh flew underneath the Bridge of the Gods in 27, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
I was a young man then.
I'll tell you, with social media, if people start hearing, hey, that's a great little place to go spend, for even for Portlanders, I mean, you're not that far, I mean, Jeffrey commutes, but you're not that far away. This could be a great place to go out and spend a nice weekend. But to do that, you wanna have, somebody's gonna wanna go in a hotel, and you're gonna be able to get up in the morning, go have a great little breakfast somewhere, and you see the beer person's here tonight, go drink some beer in the evening, and,
We have the stern wheeler, right?
That's our
Yeah,
captain, right?
there's our captain right here.
We
Tom.
actually,
Yeah, he drives the boat.
Let's go vote.
right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
give them a reason, and, you know, word of mouth starts happening, get a hold of, you know, I'd get a hold of the travel companies in Portland and just start letting them know what's available out here. Hey, we have this little package, you can buy the stern wheel and the motel and this and that, here's the stuff to do, or whatever you do, but that's how I do, because I think, again, with social media and stuff that's available now, I think you get a lot of people out here, you just gotta have people talking about it, because once I come out and do it, I'm gonna tell all my friends about it, they're gonna see it on Facebook.
I think it's helpful to get fresh eyes looking at a community too. We just, as the mayor just mentioned, we had PSU master's students, their master's project was a trail plan for economic development. It was called Connect Cascade Locks, and it had a strategic step-by-step process of things that we could do to develop our trail system, everything from volunteers to work on the trails, working with the International Mountain Biking Association and some things like that, but really kind of gave us fresh eyes for what we might be able to do as far as marketing, and a group that come out, in fact, the guys who are looking at possibly opening a pub here said they're in a biking group, and he said people like to ride out here across the Bridge of the Gods to go have a beer in Stevenson.
Right.
So now that ODOT is also going to be opening up a trail that'll go all the way, the historic highway, now you'll be able to get all the way to Cascade Locks from Portland without having to get on the interstate. So that'll be done in the next year. So we have a feeling will kind of open, hopefully get some synergy going for more people to see that there's more here than a place to cross the river.
Yeah, so I know when I go to new places, I like to go and be in an area where I can do everything I want to do in a small area, sleep, eat, do all that stuff, and then go out and do those little things that are kind of cool for that area. So whatever that is here, that's what I would try to sell, and I don't think it's that hard to get the word out once you got it.
Thanks.
Okay, more questions or discussion?
I think
Jeff?
Randy kind of hit on it just a little bit. We've had these projects, we've thought about things. It's just that kickstart, that jump that we need, and how do we get there? I mean, we talk about a lot of things, we'll kind of get a little energy, a little traction, whatever reason it sputters out, something happens. It's just the community is getting to the point, and you see the numbers where things are at. Eventually, we could not be a community anymore that's governed. The county could take it over if things fall apart and things like that. We don't want to get to that point. We are slowly dying a death here because we don't have all these jobs. It's kind of a more of a residential type area. Now that we need to have something like that, have that. What have you seen jump starts in other communities where it's just like, hey, this is the place to be at? What has been that key to that?
Again, I think it's a very, well, first of all, one thing I would do is look at who are your existing partners. You know, who owns the beautiful hotel I saw when I came in? It surprised me. It's the Best Western.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, who are your partners that are already successful here? Because they're going to be motivated to back to the fundamentals. You have to, as a community, as the city council, and as a leadership, have to be committed to the vision and taking the steps to make it happen. And, and having the community as a whole decide that this is what you want to do, and rally the troops. Get it done. I think that makes it happen. And, you know, if you have this place you want to develop, that, again, I don't know where, is the fire station by that little hotel?
Yeah, it's just.
It's the next building down.
It's
There's an empty
the
lot
gray
in
one.
front of-
Great area. I would do everything I can to get somebody, if it's right by that place, because that's such a great area. I wish I could walk to that little park right down by there.
Actually, it's right next to the post office, and we have a park area called Overlook Park, which was done as a stone viewpoint. And that's actually part of the property as well, so we see that as being able to possibly be some outdoor seating or something for whatever, if it's a restaurant or a brew pub or something like that, then there might be some possible beneficial use of something that's already had the landscape done and the stone and that sort of thing, so.
Well, at the risk of getting, an arrow slung through my back, if I understand a group of persons here, I personally, if it were me, I'd be going to Deschutes Brewery and McMenamins and some, I don't know who's here, if they're an established brewer or whatever they are, but I would go find somebody that really understands that business and the economics of it, that themselves could be a draw to the area as well, which an independent could be as well. I don't know who's here, but I would, so if that's what you want it to be, then and you think that's a great idea, or a mixed use, not only a brew pub, but an eating place, a breakfast place, what do you want to see? What's going to interest people coming? The breakfast, and the lunch, and the dinner, and the beers. What's the best way to get a combination of all those things? And then go put that out there to the companies that do that, or somebody that's willing, like whoever's in the room, to take a risk to do it, and then do everything you can to get them in there. But make sure, but again, I don't know who's in the room, but make sure that they're financially viable and that they're gonna have the balance sheet to get the job done and get the building done as much as possible. I just wanna add, I was in my hometown of Astoria this last weekend.
Did you eat at the Blue Scorcher while you were there?
No, but Astoria, when I was a kid, downtown was a thriving area. My grandparents had the photography studio. My grandpa took everybody's picture in town for all their school pictures, and it was just a thriving Main Street. And then it went through a downturn that was pretty significant. And now they said, you know what, we're gonna turn ourselves into a tourist destination. They have some of the boats, the cruises coming in. Main Street now, other than a building where they have a cantankerous owner, most of it's all filled now. We were driving on the back street when we came in, and there's a brew pub there.
Fort George Brewery, and then they did the development out on the pier for the hotel out on the pier.
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of stuff happened. My cousin Doug, sometime back, he did the cannery stuff, or not the new cannery hotel, he did some other, I forget what it was called, sort of right on the waterfront, and so they got a combination. But yeah, it's amazing when they decided this is what we want to do, and got those kind of businesses in. I thought it was great. So you can do it. You just got to.
So it's the same thing. One of the things we have that is moving ahead, as far as I know, is a fish market up there, just this side of that hotel, Native American. And we're already selling a lot of Native American fish, but basically off the street, out of their rigs, out of little canopies. They're looking at more of a substantial building there. So again, that's one of those things where you do all you can to make that thing happen.
It's a 2,000 square foot.
Like Pike's Market,
new building, seafood and fish market.
Because people will come from Portland to come buy fish here.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. There's people, it's a great day trip, and then figure out, so then as a city, you think about, okay, make sure the fish people have some sort of container that they can take back to Portland.
Or spend the night and cook it.
It's like,
Get out the flames and put it in the barbecue.
Yeah.
Robert, it's just like Christy Hart, yeah, fishes a lot. He had no idea when we brought him out here to go take his kids fishing. I said, hey, come out here, and showed him all that. He had no idea that this was available out here. So I think we gotta convert Chris from going to the coast to.
I think you get a lot of people out here. I mean, I was really surprised when I came to the event. I was like, oh, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. So I immediately, as a developer, I do first thing I thought was when I drove through is how do you get people from the river, that's infrastructure somehow, to that little cute area where they can walk around and have a place for them to eat, a little fun, and sleep.
The port is actually working with the people who are developing the fish market and are actually planning potentially other plots to the east. So there, I think, how many, it's 4 or 5 other potential spaces that will be developed on the north side of Wanapa, directly just east of the motel.
Let me ask you, is there any, the Bonneville's on the Portland side, right? So the Cascade Locks, is this where people like have to kind of wait to get through the river? Or,
At the dam.
yeah.
Yeah,
At the locks.
the locks,
What
yeah.
I'm getting at is, boy, if I was taking a trip from Lewiston to Astoria and on my boat, make sure all the boaters know that this is the place to stop, to hang out for the night. They're waiting for whatever, and make it easy for them to park their boats,
Transient.
come in and have a little fun, yeah.
Lots of good suggestions.
Paul, did you have?
Yeah, I hit this one. Robert, the community has struggled for a number of years to try to sell that property. Should the council hold out to sell it, or for the right deal, should they be willing to lease?
What I can tell you is the property, and again, I'm at the benefit of not knowing what you're in it. You may own nothing, it may be something had a long time, or whatever the situation is. I can tell you, just coming into it, it's only gonna be worth what it costs somebody to fix it all up, minus their profit. That's what it's gonna be worth. And with some of the older buildings I've seen, that means they're worth nothing. Means they're worth nothing, because by the time, if it costs you X amount of money to fix something up and do the tenant improvements, do all the stuff you need to do to make it work, you're only gonna generate, if it costs you X to do it, and you're only gonna generate Y in revenue, it's only worth that amount. So, really the value comes from what you're going to do to the property and you back it out. And so, some of my most successful deals have been when I've gone to the property seller that I've gone to and showed them, here are my numbers. I can't pay any more than that, and here's why. And be open about it, and that's always worked well for me to do that. So I would, again, encourage you to have a process, have a committee together, evaluate those when they come in, see if the numbers make sense or if they're real, and that'll tell you what it's worth. But I'm just warning you, it's just in my experience renovating a lot of historic older properties, that value can be a lot lower than you probably think. So, you gotta brace yourselves for that.
Fortunately, I don't think our seismic upgrade requirements are quite
That's
what they are in Portland,
Yeah.
so I think we'd be,
you're
you know,
probably okay, yeah.
might have a little better situation here.
Well,
Hopefully, we got our fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Some fingers on that one.
But that's, if you wanna ask what you can do as a city, that's it. You're gonna have to realize, hey, we may have to just gotta take what it's worth.
yeah.
Well, Mr. Wall, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your input and perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really invaluable to us in our decision-making process.
Thanks, Jeff, for advice. That was great. That was really interesting.
My pleasure to be here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay, we'll turn now to our next report. It's Cook's.
Can we take a 5-minute break? That'd be awesome.
We have a request for a break. Is there anyone interested in taking a break?
Drive down
Yes.
the Green Park.
Okay. I mean, usually we take a break at 9. My preference is just to wrap it up by
Yeah,
then.
let's wrap it up.
Is that,
All right.
okay.
You wanna say bye, you do have to.
No, I. Fine. Keep going.
Okay, so we'll move now to our interim city administrator report. Paul, please understand that at least one of us is anxious to
Don't go slow, Paul. Come on, speed it up.
And, well, anyway, that was it.
It's orange.
So it's, I think it's kind of a puce. I ordered tan, but apparently it's not tan paper. So I spent some time this weekend whittling your number of city administrator applicants down from 34 down to 23. I'd like to have some city council members work with me to review those that I pre-screened out. I'm having Kathy hold on to those. I want you to look at those because you may see something that I would miss. And then I'd like to have council work with me so that we can reduce that number 23 down to 5 or 7. We're about 2 weeks behind schedule right now, so, which is no big deal, but we need to get moving here. So from my perspective, I'd like to have the appointment or selection of some council members to assist in the process. And then let's reduce that number of 23 down to 5 or 7. We're still on schedule for August to be your transition month. It may roll over into September, but that's fine. So I don't know whether council wants to act on this, Mayor, or if somebody wants to step forward.
Well, what I'll do is, what we're talking about here is a review committee.
Right.
Okay. So what I'll do is just any council member that's interested in being part of that, let me know. At our next meeting, we'll appoint at least 2 people to that committee,
Question for
review committee. Jeff?
how long do you think that process is gonna take to whittle down and the time commitment for that?
It took me about 17 hours over the weekend. No.
Is that time and a half or straight time?
I would say 8 to 10 hours to get us down to that 5 or 7.
So a day or a couple half days somewhere?
Sure. But I think if you schedule it out, it'll get pretty boring if we just plan to do it in 8 or 10 hours. If we schedule it over, 3 to 5 days, it would work a lot better.
Is that adequate for you?
Yes, it is, thank you. The Downtown Revitalization Steering Committee, at your recommendation, has developed a job description. I attached that to my report so you could see where they're going. They're also working on a work plan that's related to this, and they'll be coming back to you soon at seeking your approval of both the job description and the work plan. The work plan as it is drafted is infused with the trail pieces. If you attended the Salilo presentation and saw the draft report, you saw that there are specific steps in the roadmap that say this should be done, or the lead should be the Downtown Revitalization Group, or this should be the city. So at their next meeting, they will be infusing that plan into their work plan. On June 25th, we have our follow-up meeting with our Hood River partners on the Phoebum Graft situation. We are rapidly rolling to a point where council will have to have the attorneys come in and talk to you about whether or not you want to entertain pulling eminent domain on that property where the tower is supposed to be, or we'll have to cancel the tower, or you're going to have to consider spending additional money on a monthly basis with Mr. Smith. So the attorney and I talked this afternoon, and so the thought was to kind of prepare you for that discussion, and then at the last meeting in June, we may go into executive session to talk about that. Any questions on that? Brad, you have a question?
No, not really. I kind of heard the updates on that as we're going along here, and it does appear that we're going to have to decide to do something. The owner of the property seems to be creating a bit of a problem with that.
So and I've directed the attorney to let Mr. Smith know that that is one of the options that the city will look at. The sheriff is meeting with all of the Hood River County partners to talk them into throwing additional funding in to help us balance out that project. You're still looking at somewhere shy of $30,000 for us to get that project up and done. 13 of it is the tower itself. And I'll know more on the 25th.
Well, could you
Yes.
just kind of clarify, there's also been a holdup in a payment from the county of, I think it's something like 38,000. Is that something where if the city spends 30,000, then we can expect to get the payment from the county that would then replace it, or is there a different relationship in those two bills?
What the county has done is to link the FEMA communication grant with the tower. And that in itself has been controversial in working with the county. But the dollars are held up until the city can file the registered easement survey. And in order for us to get there, we have to have a signed document from the property owner agreeing to that survey. So, because Mr. Smith, he won't sign because he wants money. So it's the same 50 by 50 that you entered into an agreement in 1970 and then paid him for in 2002. That was one condition. The second condition is the delivery and the warranty on all of the equipment, and that warranty is held by Day Wireless. So that condition is taken care of from our perspective, from the way Deb and I look at it. The third piece is that long-range master plan for the maintenance, repair, and replacement over time. And we're still waiting for the county to tell us what does that look like so we can get that done. So those are the three things that are holding it up.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just talking about the relationship between what we would expect once we meet those three stipulations that the county has to the cost that we're going to take on, or that hopefully our partners will take on with us of $30,000. What you're estimating is $30,000.
Yeah.
So if we take on that
That's our
cost, and then we then expect the payment from the county to come in, assuming that we meet their conditions, we're expecting a payment that's greater than what you're anticipating the cost to be.
Exactly, but those dollars may be pre-committed in the communication grant. So it may not be a dollar-for-dollar exchange. That's why we're pushing so hard on the sheriff to get the rest of the partners to be willing to put more money into the project.
Randy?
Yeah, Paul, just to be clear, you mentioned the long-term maintenance of the facilities. I would assume that the other fire districts aren't looking at us to be providing long-term maintenance and repair of equipment.
No, what the IGA that tied Cascade Locks into the lead for this transfers the operation and that responsibility onto the 911 district.
Right. So
the city's not on the hook for that piece.
Okay.
We just have to propose the plan that everybody is supposed to agree to.
Good.
Okay, Jeff?
On the 50 by 50 easement, the tower is located outside of that. Is there, in looking at getting a different tower, I remember this conversation, is that locating it on that same parcel, then does the negotiation still need to happen since it's within that confines, that 50 by 50, or Mr. Smith just wants to renegotiate the whole deal?
I'm not sure quite what Mr. Smith's approach is. But when I came and we went up there, Tracy and I, with Mr. Smith, he was the first to notice that the foundation and the tower were outside of the 50 by 50. And we agreed at that time that it didn't make sense for the city to be committed to spending more money just to loop that in, so that we didn't want to expand the 50 by 50 because you already paid for it. So we had Tracy's engineer look at it and figure out how to locate the new tower without guy wires inside the existing 50 by 50 because the city had already paid for it.
Okay.
Was that responsive to your question?
So there's the ability to relocate a tower if we have to, correct? Within the 50 by 50 and not have to pay any extra funds?
The new Blue Lamp tower will go inside the 50 by 50.
Okay.
you say that he now wants to, even within that original 50, now he's wanting to renegotiate and have a monthly installment of like $300 a month or something?
He wants monthly payments in perpetuity for the.
Even though we've
50 by
already
50, even though
paid
you'd
for
already
the.
paid for it, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
Tom?
So again, clarification on the maintenance side, the IGA, it is good as long as they agree to, because we've never approached them with what those maintenance costs are. So if they have issues with what those maintenance costs are, they don't have to, I mean, they can pull out of it if they aren't in, we're stuck with it if they don't go along with it, even with the IGA, because we haven't given them what those costs are. So they're looking at staying with it if it's reasonable, is that where it's at?
No, you're talking about the ongoing
The
maintenance.
ongoing maintenance, right.
Yeah, the ongoing maintenance of the equipment and the materials that were given to all the districts, that's the plan that the county is looking for.
Right.
Once the county and the 911 center tell us what they want in that, we can then build that fairly quickly. We can't get from the county, what does it look like? They don't have one for the police facilities that the 911 center operates. So we're trying to figure out, but I think by the 25th, we should have a pretty good idea what that is.
So another question on other, this is our tower here, we're committed to 2 other towers that we put in house. Is everybody committed to the this one's going up on us possibly. Osberger and Middle Mountain, we put our equipment up in there. What kind of, are there potential issues with, long-term issues with those 2 towers?
Not that we're aware of, Tom.
Okay.
The issue right now evolves around the 50 by 50 property and the tower that meets the federal requirements.
So what goes on those towers are gonna be part of the long-term maintenance
Right.
project?
Yeah, that's not part of
Yeah.
the city's. Ultimately, if we do this right, the city would not have any long, ongoing responsibility, except for what's inside that 50 by 50.
Well, aren't we all committed to the long-term maintenance?
Yes.
So we will have,
Yeah.
a piece of action in this long-term maintenance of the whole,
Right, but you have an electric department as well as a 911 electric box up there, and Tracy has a pole up there with some of his stuff on it.
well, I'm just saying, we're committed to the entire, when they're saying the maintenance, it just isn't the maintenance of this. All facilities are committed to the maintenance of all of the facilities, all the towers, all of the equipment. So we all put in some kind of money to keep all of that going, correct, or not correct?
no, isn't it, isn't it each facility is responsible for their own equipment?
Each department would be
Each
responsible for
department.
its own.
Okay, so we're gonna be responsible for that tower, not the other tower, somebody else is gonna, okay, well,
Okay.
all right.
Just like we are
Okay,
now,
thanks.
basically.
Okay, moving on.
Did that answer your question, Tom?
Well, I don't know.
I know sometimes it's.
Not the answer you wanted.
I'll live with that for right now, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is the answer, but.
Third is the contract with Hood River for interim chief services. The current contract expires June 30th, 2012. I've attached to the report the recommended first amendment to that contract. In the proposed budget, we are recommending that the city and the city of Hood River enter into an extension of that contract for up to 6 months. And then depending on what you do with the chief paramedic or how you move forward with that full-time position, that at least keeps the interim chief services in place with the ability to cancel that out at 30 days' notice.
So is there anyone that objects to that plan coming to the council for formal action June 25th?
And that's all I
take us then to mayor and council member comments. Jeff?
I'm good.
Randy?
None.
Brad?
I am without.
Mark?
I would like to see support from our port on the raising of fees to keep our town viable and running.
Tom?
I just wanted to thank the Public Works Department, because it may look like a very simple thing. They went through the downtown area, wiped out all the weeds, wiped out, it took them a bit to do, clean up just basically the curbs. And the town totally changed. I mean, it totally changed as you come down, they gave that detail to it, that pop to it, that I'm sure the gentleman that I came through and said, is gonna say it's a clean town. It didn't look that clean a week or so ago because of that. And you can make all your places look as nice as they want, but if the curbs and all that is looking bad, it just takes that extra little pop away from it. So I appreciate the guys, they worked really hard. I'm surprised how quickly, I mean, they knocked that thing out, worked hard on it, and nailed all the grass and everything out of the curbs. And when you look at the whole thing down through town, it totally changed the look of how the town was. Because everybody else is they're doing a pretty good job taking care of everything. And then that just really detailed and popped it out. So, yeah, I appreciate what the guys did out there.
I'll pass it on to the
Yeah.
crews.
That's it.
Okay. I just want to just kind of address the concern that was raised earlier about people speaking at council member meetings, and we have council rules that govern. I've been on council long before how we operate our meetings, and what we're attempting to do is provide the opportunity for any citizen who has input either on an agenda item that we've got on our agenda or something that's not on our agenda to speak at our council meetings and to be heard. And so we've been committed to that since I've been on council. We've actually expanded and continued that recently. What we do want to clarify though is there is an appropriate time to address the council, and that's, as I say at the beginning of every meeting, you sign up, write down what you'd like to speak about, and we'll call on you before the council even starts talking. Okay, we'll hear a short staff report, and we'll open it up for public comment on every issue. And then, if that wasn't enough, we also have an agenda item for people to speak and address the council on issues that we don't have on our agenda, that maybe we should or shouldn't in the future. And that's also a time for people to address the council. What we don't want to do is have people from the audience interjecting in the middle of council members speaking or the council deliberation and discussion. And so for that reason, we've asked people to identify what they'd like to speak about, and we'll give them upfront every opportunity to speak. I know that that's not a violation of the First Amendment, and I feel proud that we're upholding that long-standing tradition. So I just want to clarify that. If you'd like to speak to the council, you're welcome to come to the meetings and address the council. And we have a procedure for you to do that. It's not in the middle of someone talking. It's not in the middle of a council discussion. It's actually before the council discussion. So I also wanted to just say another thank you. We've already talked a little bit about this Lilo Planning Studio and the work that they did on behalf of the port as well as the city. They've given us a great roadmap for how to make this city a destination for hikers and bikers and outdoor enthusiasts. And I hope that we'll be able to work with the Tourism Committee, the Downtown Revitalization Committee, and continue our relationship with, working relationship with the port to make that a reality. There's some good immediate things that we can do, starting right away, and then some long-term planning that we can do to help make this a destination for trails. So I'm definitely committed to making that happen. I hope the rest of the council is, and I know that we have a lot of people in the community that are excited about making that happen. I'll announce this again tomorrow night as well when we have our what perhaps may be our final budget committee meeting. We've been struggling with trying to find the funds in our budget for our Parks and Rec program. Before I came here tonight, got off the phone with one of the representatives from Nestle Corporation. They've agreed to donate $2,500 to help keep our rec program live. And I just wanted to say thank you to those folks for doing that. It's going to make a big difference for the children and families in Cascade Locks. So, but we'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit more tomorrow. Also, just wanted to mention a couple of meetings that are coming up. I mentioned already tomorrow night at 6:30, the Budget Committee meeting. I got this card, June 16, it's this coming Saturday at the Hood River Library. They're having their summer reading program kickoff party. The theme is Dream Big, Read. And so they have a number of big themed events like Big Fun. We're starting another summer of great books. There's going to be Big Bang Bucket Drummers, which is exciting for some kids. I'm going to take my daughter if we can get up there, because she's already kind of getting that. She loves to kind of rock out to the beat. She saw some Brazilian drummers at First Friday. It's just fun to see that. I hope it's not too loud for her ears. But there's going to be a big colossal cake for people to show up, and then there's going to be a chance for families to get creative with giant pipe cleaners. And it's the kickoff of the summer reading program. I encourage anyone who can to attend that. It's at the Hood River County Library.
Is that all day, Lance?
The time is, thank you, the time is 2 p.m.
2 p.m., okay.
It's at the Hood River Library. And they're calling it a monolithic event. Okay, monolithic.
Epic proportion?
What's that?
Epic proportion?
I think it is epic, yeah. As Paul's mentioned earlier, June 18th is the City Council meeting to discuss development of our one plot property. There's an action team meeting on June 21st at noon. Then again, the 25th is a City Council meeting. And we've got a couple meetings on June 28th. It's a Thursday. There's the Downtown Revitalization Steering Committee, as well as our joint City Port work group on economic development. So those are meetings that are coming up, and I think all of them have an opportunity for the community to get involved and share their perspectives. Okay, and that'll do it for me.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second, Mark?
Second.
Okay, so Jeff made the motion, Mark has a second. Any comments, questions, or discussion about the adjournment?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
All kids are Sandy.
Whoa, it was before 9.
Yeah, it was before 9, he said 9.
Yeah, so before 9 goes to me.